What is going on, you guys? Today, I want to talk about how to get a derailed project back on track. It is a common question I get inside the real estate community I'm a part of. And this past week on a call, there was a new flipper who had to fire a contractor. Their lender didn't want to give him any additional money, and he needed the additional money. And he had already had someone give him a small loan of about $5,000 to take the very next step that he needed to take. And then he used his construction draw from his lender to pay that lender back. And he was kind of stuck. And so I'm going to review what I told him. And generally what I told him is what I have done, because I have had many projects, unfortunately, where the trains have come off the tracks and I needed to fix it. And I'm going to walk you through the principles of how I did that. But first, my name is Ryan Rice. I'm a full-time real estate investor. I've done over 100 deals in my career. Last year, we did 7 figures. I have a lot of deep scars that I share the learnings from, with the hopes that you don't have to get the deep cuts that came along with those scars. So there are really 4 things that I did every time that this happened. And again, for context, I had about 20 projects going all at the same time, and all of them came off the tracks. And so that's how I've learned that I had to do these things. But here are the 4 steps that I took. And in the moment, it was just me surviving, basically. But as I reflect on the 4 things that I did, here is what I come up with. 1, you have to determine how much equity you have. 2, you have to get more cash, and we'll dive into that. 3, you have to get the right team in place, because that's usually why your project derailed in the first place, because you have the wrong team. And then 4, you need to increase your involvement. So step 1 is determining how much equity that you have. And what I walked this individual who was in this situation this past week, we walked through what was his purchase price, how much money had he already spent, how much money was left to spend, and then what was he conservatively going to sell the house for. And he was in a very favorable position. There was significant equity. And why this is important, the greater the equity, the more options you're going to have, because it's going to be more attractive for people to step in and give you some support that you need. If you have little to no equity, that is going to make it a lot more difficult, and you're going to have to be more creative. But hopefully, if you bought right and you have equity, then you're going to be able to, your solutions are going to be plentiful. You just have to figure out what steps to take in order to achieve those solutions. So this podcast is not going to be about how to make sure that you have the right deal. It's going to be we're already going to assume that you have the right deal. Now, what steps do you need to take in order to get your train back on track? And this particular individual was so concentrated on what he needed to do next, and was so concerned about the position that he was in. He hadn't taken a second to just stop and pause and say, okay, what's the assessment of this deal? I bought it for X price. I have all of this money into it, and I'm going to sell it for this. Okay, yeah, I have about $100,000 of equity. That's going to give me some good options to figure out what to do next. So don't get caught up in the midst of, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. Be sure to just stop, breathe, and assess the overall health of your project. Step 2 is going to be to get more cash. And the good thing is that there is a lot of options here that you can investigate. And the number of your options is going to be greater if you have a significant amount of equity in your projects. And so as I think back on when I had to get my train back on tracks, here are the things that I did to infuse more cash into the projects where I needed to do so. The first thing you can do is sell your own assets or infuse your own personal cash, or maybe a little bit of both. I found this, it sucks if you have to sell some assets that you have, and especially if those assets are producing income for you, or if you have to infuse personal cash that you could use elsewhere and make money. But infusing your own personal cash is going to decrease risk in the long run, because you're going to have less leverage on your project. And so if you just need $5,000 to $10,000, it's probably not a big deal. And if you have it, you could just put that in. And it's also like, if you only need $5,000 to $10,000 and you have that much equity in your project, you could also just go raise the $5,000 to $10,000. Now, where it gets a little difficult to make a decision is, let's say you need 50 grand or 100 grand to insert into your project or projects for any specific reason. And that's when I would really advise to consider selling whatever personal assets that you have so you can infuse your own cash. Because if you take on 50 or 100 grand more of leverage and that starts to make your deals tighter, then you could be just kicking the can down the road in terms of the problems that you're going to go face, which is when you go to sell the property, are you going to get enough money to pay off all of your lenders and all the debt that you have on your homes? And so what you do is ultimately going to be dependent upon to what extent. Are we talking a catastrophic train derailment here where there's lots of explosions, as there's going to be a significant amount of effort to build the train tracks and build the train back to get it back running? Or are we talking, just the caboose kind of fell off and you gotta right it? And so what you do is going to depend upon how much trouble that you're in. And the more trouble that you're in, the more you're going to want to think about liquidating your personal assets and putting your personal funds to use, as opposed to maybe just infusing some other quick cash into the project. Now, the rest of these options are putting more leverage against the project or projects. And so I said the first one first because that is going to be your least risky, because you're not adding more leverage to the project. You're just putting your own cash in. But the rest of these are adding more credit or adding more leverage, which is going to be more risky. And so you need to decide based on the health of your projects, what is going to be the right move for you. But the second thing you can do is you can look at business credit options. And there's some really good business credit options out there. And when I say business credit options, you have the option of credit cards. You have the option of just general business credit, like line of credit products out there. And then you also have the option of personal credit. And so first is business credit cards. There's many credit cards out there, especially if you've been in business for any amount of time, where you can just go apply and they'll give you maybe a 0% interest for 6 to 12 months. And then you might be able to get access to, 20 or even 30 grand cash for 0% interest. And that's going to be very helpful to you. There are even brokers out there whose business it is you hire this person and then they will go find you the 10 credit cards out there that have options for you or interest-free options for you. And then they'll take a cut of whatever you're approved for. And so, if you spend 30 to 60 minutes on Google, or even just asking around in your network, you're going to find access to those credit cards and at least figure out what your options are. And your options are going to be greater the longer that you've been in business and the more money that you've had going in and coming out of your business. If you're brand new, it's going to be a little bit harder, but you can still, if you put in effort, which I know most people don't want to do these days, but if you put in literally 30 to 60 minutes of effort and do some searching and talk to people, then you're going to find some options of credit cards out there. The second credit option is general business credit. And a product that I have used before is, it used to be called Cabbage, and now American Express, I think, bought the company Cabbage. And so now it's rebranded as Business Credit and American Express. But that can be a great option. I think I've used their product many times, and they could give you, over $50K worth of business credit, and the terms aren't super favorable. Like that program, for example, that I used, you had to, you got, say, $50K, but then you had to pay back principal and interest every month. But it was still better than not having any cash. And so I got to infuse cash into the business, and then I had to make a principal and interest payment back. And so maybe it's even $5 or $6 grand a month. But let's say I only needed 30 grand. I could take the 50 grand out. It's going to be expensive and I'm going to be paying for the fees. But over time, I can use the excess money of, whatever is in excess to 20 grand to pay down. And that way I can fundamentally have that 20 grand for a good 6 months before I start having to pay down all the principal and interest on it. And so leveraging some business credit options can be a very useful way just to infuse some quick cash. So again, Ryan, where do I find that stuff? Literally just put some effort into Google, like just search for it, and you're going to find some different options out there. And then the third is personal credit options. So what's great about personal credit options is it takes advantage of your entire financial history of your life. And so if you have some meaningful or healthy financial history in terms of your personal credit side, then you can leverage. You could likely go get a 0% interest credit card on your personal credit. Or now, like what I have access to now, my bank keeps sending me these blank checks where essentially it's like interest-free cash that I can just turn a check into the bank and they give me check and I pay like a 4% fee on it. And so I can get 12-month interest-free money that I pay 4% on, and I don't have to make any. There's a minimum payment of like a couple $100 a month that I need to pay on the account, but I'm essentially getting access to money for 12 months for 4%. Like, it's a wonderful product, and it's because on the personal financial side, like, I have the health needed. And so you may not have that, but at least looking into what your options are. And one of the best options I have found is just go to wherever you bank. There's no financial institution that knows your financial health better than your bank, because if all of your money is coming in and out of your bank, or at least that's how you manage your stuff, then it's very easy for them to evaluate your financial health, and they might have some options for you. And so even if you suspect that your financial health might not be great, like, just going into your branch and say, hey, you guys have access to all of my financial stuff. Here is my problem. What solutions or what products might you have that could help? And then just talking to them about it. So again, yes, this involves some effort, but it can be a good outcome if you need some quick cash. So that's the business credit option. The third way that you can get more cash into your business is by asking your current lenders for more money. And in this case, the individual had already done that and the lender said no. But many people don't think about that. And so going back to your current lender and being transparent with them. Lenders, by the way, not to get too far off track here, but any issue that you have in your project, pick up the phone and call your lender and communicate. And if you don't have a plan yet, then say, hey, here is the problem. I'm coming up with the plan, and I will communicate it to you in the next 24 to 48 hours, but I simply wanted to be transparent with you, and I wanted you to know. Doing that is going to be so much more advantageous than waiting for shit to hit the fan, and then maybe your lender finds out in another way, and all of their trust is gone, and that's going to increase the likelihood that they foreclose on you if there's any sort of issue. If you read through your loan documents, what they need to do, or the definition of default, can be, relatively low, because they have to mitigate the risk. If they're giving you hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're going to write their loan documents so that if they make judgment that you have an issue, they can foreclose and take the home back to minimize their risk. And so just being transparent and communicating to your lenders the good, bad, and the ugly is going to help you in the long term, and it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation. But the further you delay that conversation, the more uncomfortable it's going to be, because the pain is going to build to be even greater. And so pick up the phone, tell your lenders what's going on, be transparent with them, come up with a plan. And if you don't have one, tell them you will get them one in the next day or two, and then follow up and communicate what your plan is. But asking your lenders for more money is one of the better options. They know your situation better than anyone else. They're already invested, and that may be an option for you. And then the last option, or the fourth option, to infuse some additional cash, is to just ask, raise additional money from other sources. And I have done this, and it's actually not that hard. You'd be surprised how many people just want to put their money to use. And if your project has a good amount of equity left, even if it's a third position and they might take like a 20% interest rate or something like that, it's better than not having the cash. And so, it might mean that 95 people have to tell you no, and the 96 is the one that tells you yes. But if you have equity on your project, there's a very low likelihood that you're not going to be able to raise additional money. In a lot of cases, they may just be open to doing a promissory note as opposed to putting another lien on the project, which basically just means you sign a piece of paper and they give you the money. But in some cases, if you have a lot of equity, and let's say you need something large, like 50 grand, you have enough equity to put a third lien on the house, and then that can satisfy the lender and you can get it done. But you need to make sure that you're doing step one, which is determine how much equity you have. And then when you're out there raising additional money, it's going to be easier the more equity that you have. All right, so you have determined how much equity you have. You have raised more cash so that you can put it into the project. Now you need to finish the project. And so step 3 is getting the right team in order to do that. And it's likely that if your project was derailed, you have some good learnings. It's likely derailed due to some sort of contractor issue. So now you have to hire the right contractor. Make sure that you're documenting your learnings and that you take what you've learned and you apply it to hiring the next person. And the thing that I found that maximizes the likelihood that I'm hiring the right person is I just go talk to someone that has hired that person for the exact same job. And so look up whatever your scope of work is and ask the person, hey, can you direct me to 3 people that have hired you for a job very similar, and then go talk to them and make sure that the job is very similar and then hire that person. And what's likely going to happen is they're going to give you a price that's much higher than the first guy, because the first guy you had to fire because he didn't know what he was doing and gave you a low price, and that's why you hired him to begin with. And so you're going to have to swallow this higher price, but that's part of it. And so to get the right team, just make sure that you're having the right reference checks and that you're doing the reference checks in the right way, which is validating that if you have an entire full gut remodel left to do, you're not hiring someone that has done a beautiful kitchen and, oh my gosh, it looks so great, and wow, because it looks so great, I'll hire you. That's a different skill set than a job that needs all new plumbing, electrical, HVAC, et cetera, et cetera. And then also part of getting the right team is getting the right agent. The best agents are going to be more than happy to go check on the job, send you photos, send you videos, especially if you are in a different market. Having someone there that's boots on the ground is going to be very valuable, because then when a contractor asks you for money, you could say, hey, here's going to be our process going forward. I'm 500 miles away. I'm going to have, Joe Realtor is going to stop by the house. So whenever you want money, put the 3 of us on a text thread, send all of us a text, say, hey, I'm going to want money Friday. Can you come walk the job? And it's Tuesday. And so then the realtor can go out on Wednesday, take a bunch of photos and videos. That way you can pay your contractor on Friday. And so just having the right boots on the ground and having someone there who can support you is going to be really beneficial. And there's plenty of amazing real estate agents who will do that for you. And then step 4 of getting your train back on track is you're going to increase your involvement. Whether you want to admit it or not, what I found when the train came off the tracks is I put way too much trust in whether it was a real estate agent or a contractor or both. And I did that because I was really busy, or I had logical reasons to justify not being as involved. But now that your train has come off the tracks, you need to be very involved. A story that comes to mind I think it's a good analogy that'll relate. There was a period when Tesla was going to go bankrupt. And I guess Elon had to deliver some astronomical amount of Teslas to the market, but his manufacturing capabilities weren't designed to be able to do that. And he had a very short window, and he was going to run out of money. And if he did not deliver X amount of cars in time, then his business was likely going to be dead, and Tesla wouldn't be here today. Well, what Elon did is he went and he put his desk in the middle of the manufacturing floor, and then engineers would tell these stories about how they would show up at 3 a.m. and Elon would be passed out at his desk on the manufacturing floor. But essentially what he did is Elon went around and figured out, okay, what are all of my hairiest problems? And then he would go spend time on the factory floor with those engineers and say, hey, we are going to make decisions about this right now. We're going to solve this problem right now. I know that probably means at least 20% of the decisions are going to be wrong, but we're going to make up for that because 80% of them are going to be right, and we're going to make them quickly. And what I love about that story is it shows what is truly required when the train comes off the tracks, or when you need to right the ship. The head of the business gets involved, goes to what the hairiest problem is, and spends a significant amount of time there. So your train is off the tracks. What is the number one problem that you are facing that if you fix that one thing, it's going to make everything else in your business better? And then you need to go spend a significant amount of time there. And me convincing myself that that is an appropriate way to spend my time has been very helpful, because there's all these other reasons and distractions that I can come up with of why I shouldn't have to go be involved. And not to mention that I don't want to do it because it's annoying. But when your business blows up or when the train comes off the tracks, you have to get involved. And so what that might look like with a contractor, it might mean spending a significant amount of time on the phone to understand the details of what the scope of work is. And okay, so can you send me a video of a marble rolling on the floor so I can see whether or not it's level? Okay, all right, it's not level. What are you going to do to fix it? Okay, we're going to have to fix some subfloor. We're going to have to, that one floor joist that looks a little, what is that little thing right there on the floor joist? Oh yeah, okay, that floor joist is rotten. Okay, we need to fix that. And glad we caught that before the subfloor went on, or else it was going to become a big issue. There's just all of these ways that you can become significantly more involved, even if you are from a distance. Now, the best way, if you are from a distance, the best way you can become more involved, maybe you just need to go out there. And this is the learning for you, that if you selected to try to flip houses from a distance and it's gone south, something went wrong. And the number one way is for you to go be on the factory floor of how you're going to fix the issue. And so if you have to go out there, hey, that sucks. And I have had to do it. And I know how much it sucks. But when I did it, things got better because I got more involved. And so you getting more involved is going to increase the speed at which your train gets back on track. So I wanted to go through that with you guys. I hope that's helpful. It's inevitable if you're in real estate long enough that you're going to have a deal that falls off the tracks. But that's part of life, and it happens. And knowing what to do or knowing how to get your train back on track is just going to help you. And honestly, that's where I have learned the most. And so I haven't learned the most from my wins. I've learned the most from my learnings or my losses. And so if you're in that moment right now and it feels like it sucks, just know that all you're doing is you're building the story that you're going to one day tell, and you're building the greatest foundational learning that you're going to get, because the moment that you're in right now is what's going to teach you the most. And you're going to look back 24 months from now and say, man, I'm so grateful for those hard times, because I learned everything I needed to learn that has moved me to where I am right this second. And so just know that if you're going through hard times. So if you guys know someone whose train has been derailed and you feel like this will be helpful, send this to them. I make these, again, because I have a lot of scars of my own and I want to pass along those learnings to you. And selfishly, the way that this podcast grows is by you sharing it. And it continues to grow because you share it. And so please continue to do that if there are people who you know would benefit from hearing this message. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.